What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode. We're going to be installing a cooling fan controller on the red E36 behind me here. So the components we need to do this are a main ECU there, if you want to call it that. Then we have the main harness that goes to the fan from the ECU. We have our little fitting which comes from this, and that goes into the ECU, and that's what takes the temperature. We have our, what's this one here? This one here goes to the
sensor.
Yeah, that's the other half of this here. And then we have our main positive and negative coming from there. And so this is something that every car, especially every BMW, should have, because as long as you have coolant and don't have a cracked head, your car will never overheat, because it will control when the fan turns on and off.
Alrighty guys, so Ben's just installing the sensor adapter in one of the hose clamps there. So the first step you want to do when you're starting this is you just drain all the coolant just all over the floor, or if your E36 came with a built-in coolant catch tray, just dump it like straight on there. It works mint.
Yes.
And then what you do is you just remove your big ass air box and replace it with a fully sick pod filter, which is currently not attached.
But it's getting there.
It's gonna get there, so just pretend there's a pod filter there, and then you struggle with a single hose clamp like Ben has for about an hour.
Friggin' thing, too small.
So yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if I explained earlier, but I'm actually going to run two temperature gauges on this car. I'm going to have one checking the temperature as it comes out of the radiator, and then I'm going to have another one checking it as it comes out of the engine. And that's going to tell me how much the radiator is actually cooling the coolant down. And then the one coming out of the engine is also going to be my fan controller. So it's going to activate the fan at a certain temperature, and then it'll shut it off 9 degrees lower than that certain temperature. So yeah, you can never have too many temp gauges on a BMW. So this is going to be the one coming straight out of the radiator, and then there's the one there which was my old temperature gauge, but I'm now going to convert that into my fan controller one. Yeah. So you can never have too many temperature gauges on an old BMW. And then eventually I want to run a pyrometer or exhaust temp gauge for those that are less educated. Okay, so everything's connected up for the Thermofan thing. We've done all the wiring. What is it? Midnight on a Friday night. So we've got our main fan wire here, goes to our fan. We've got this red wire over here, is the main ignition wire, and then it's all connected up into the ECU under the car. And we just set it before to turn on at 0 degrees. So if you, I don't know if you just want to hang about in the car in the bay there, and you might be able to hear it. But it should kick on as soon as I turn the car to accessories. So it turns on because I have it set for 0 degrees. So yeah, when I get it running, I'll set it for a higher temp, and it should keep the car cool. So it's 12 o'clock midday the next day, and I'm just going to tidy up all the wiring now. So I bought this conduit wiring, or wire covering, and I made an impulse purchase and bought a pot filter as well. So you can get some mad induction sounds now out of this car when I start it again. But anyway, yeah, so I'm just going to tidy up the wiring, get this pod filter. That should all be it then. Yeah. Since we've done our last little update, we've got the pod filter on the car, and then we went out to get some aluminium to make up a little mounting bracket for it, and then decided we would go play frisbee instead. And we bought a vortex too, so we went and played in the park like little kids. It's too hot now, so now we're back working on our car. So we're back on day 3 of the gauge install. It's taken 3 days to install the gauge somehow. But anyway, so all the wiring's all been neatened up by our cameraman Jake here. So it all looks very factory. And the radiator has been refilled with coolant, but we can't start it and test it because we don't have a battery. Our battery's flat. So that's a bit disappointing. But anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to install a volt gauge on Jake, the cameraman's car now, so we'll get stuck into that.
Alrighty guys, so we're going to install just a simple volt gauge into my car today. So the reason why we're doing that is just as a safety precaution, so you can just sort of see if your alternator is still working as it's supposed to be. We've also installed well, it's a factory, but this one didn't come factory with an electronic fan, so we've hooked up an electronic fan to an electronic fan controller in this car already, and we've noticed that when it engages, it actually you can feel and see the whole car drops in voltage for just like a second just as it engages. So just be interesting just to be able to keep track of that. And we've also got a light bar and stuff installed on this one, so it's just pretty much just a safety precaution just so we don't get stranded somewhere with a flat battery. So let's just hook straight into it. Alrighty guys, so what we've done is we've just simplified the install for this right now. We've just hooked up everything into one wire, so we're just going to get a 12 volt in as soon as you turn your accessories on in your car, so that'll power the backlighting on the gauge. It'll give you a reading for the gauge, as well as like powering the gauge. So what we were going to do was we were going to hook it into the roll toggle, which is your adjustability for your backlighting on your cluster. Like you can see we did on Ben's car in this little snippet here. So you can see it works, and then when you turn the lights on, it turns on. But you can actually dim it with the dim switch as well. So it makes it pretty handy. So it works with everything else in the car, as you can see. So dim it again, man. Just keep dimming it.
Oh, yeah.
So when you dim this, everything in the car actually dims with it. How we did that, you can watch that video. We'll just put a link somewhere in the video here. But what I want to do on my car is I want to try and source a separate toggle from another car that we can hook in under the gauges here somewhere, so we can run them completely independent from the cluster, because the cluster lighting, it's an old car, so it's not too fantastic. It's pretty dim how it is, while as these gauges are they're really in your face when you're driving at night, so it's nice to sort of be able to dim them a bit so they're not just constantly blinding you, because if you turn it down all the way, then you can't really see your factory instrument cluster, but the gauges are still pretty bright, so it'd be good to run them independently so we can have like your full backlight on your cluster, but then dim your gauges down so they're not so intense at night. So yeah, so all we've done for the meantime, just simplify this just so we can get it running until we can source a separate roll toggle. So. Alrighty guys, so if the camera quality or the video quality just dropped, don't be mad, because our camera just died, so we're going to film the outro on my phone. But so we've just hooked the gauge all up, so as you can see it's running. You can cycle through all the different colours and stuff that these come with. But for the meantime, because we just did a real short and simple install for this, if we change the colour to white and we turn the car off, it'll reset back to green, just because we didn't run a 12 volt constant to it. We've just run it straight off the ignition. So we'll fix it all up once we get that little like roller toggle switch thing that I want to do. just to run the backlighting off that, so then we can actually have it all hooked in properly. But just did it nice, short and simple, just to get it going, just so we can actually run it in the car for the meantime. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like, subscribe. Yeah, we'll see you on the next one.